Good morning, everybody. Wisconsin's 25th District Senator Romaine Quinn is back for our monthly chat today, Thursday, July 31st, 2025. July 31st. Man, the summer's flying by. For DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden, and you're watching DrydenWire Live, presented by Americans for Prosperity Wisconsin. AFP Wisconsin works to reignite the American dream and break down government barriers that hold us back from our full potential. Visit AFPWisconsin.com and join AFP to fight for more freedom for all Wisconsinites. With that, we welcome back to the show our guest who joins us on the last Thursday of each month, Wisconsin's 25th District Senator Romaine Quinn. Romaine, good morning and happy belated birthday. Your birthday was yesterday.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning. Happy to be here.
So if being in politics adds 2 additional years on for every year that you could also, like, you have to add 3, how old would you be? What have you been? How long have you been in?
Oh man,
in office? What, 10 years ish between mayor and?
Well, about 10. Yeah.
So
well, not even counting that state office, it'll be 10. Woof.
So you're older than I am now.
Kind of. Yeah.
Kind of.
Thanks for that.
Yeah. You're welcome. Yeah. You're like 60 now or something. It's like dog years. Raquel.
That means your dad.
What's
that?
That
means your dad's like 180.
180. Yeah, that's crazy.
Harry doesn't look 180, so tell him he looks great.
I will. Actually, hopefully he's watching, or he'll be watching it later. He always does. Raquel, how soon until the baby's coming? Do you have a countdown, a timer?
Next Friday is the doctor's prediction, but man, I don't know how she'll make it that long, or this baby's going to be huge. So ready anytime.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome. That's your third baby. That's going to be, man, that's great. I heard a statistic the other day. I don't know if this is true. It was on Facebook, so it probably isn't, but
totally
you never know. That like the happiest women are in their 30s, married with 3 kids. So just saying, Raquel should be like super, super happy all the time, according to.
I will tell her that, Ben.
Okay. You tell her that.
I'll remind her that these are the best days of her life.
You're welcome. So, right.
Yeah.
All right. So since you were on last, the budget was signed. I want your thoughts on that. But of course, the most recent thing is Evers announced that he wasn't running for re-election. Surprised or not?
Yeah, I think it was going to be 50-50. Some say he was probably their best chance to keep the governor's mansion, but I think he's got liabilities too. So it just depends, right? I think over time, voters get fatigued, with certain people. We're not as exciting anymore. I think we saw the same under Governor Walker. He was doing a great job, but, going for that third term, he wasn't, the new exciting candidate anymore. I'm not new and exciting anymore. And Evers isn't new and exciting anymore, right? So there's advantages and disadvantages to both. So I wasn't surprised. By the time at the end of the next term, he'd have been darn close to 80, or late 70s. And he'll have a nice fat pension to retire on. He's been in public service his whole life. So you might as well collect it and enjoy it.
This is the first time. So speaking of Scott Walker, you were in the assembly and he ran for his third term but lost. So then there was that, 3 months of a lame duck session, right? Or lame duck term. This is the first time, though, you've been in the legislature when you have the incumbent governor who has already announced, because, he's still the governor for like a year and a half.
Yep.
I'm trying to figure out a way to ask you, what do you see anything different between, or goods or bads, if he announced that he was going to run again last week, and you have a year and a half of him, he's running again, we know this, versus he's not running and you have a year and a half left of him not running? Is that going to make any difference for you as a legislature, or how he is going to approach that last year and a half?
Yeah, I mean, he could, I guess I never really thought about it that way yet either, Ben. I mean, he could approach it a couple different ways, right? Is from here on out, is it his legacy? So does he want to get certain bipartisan things done? Or now that he's not running again, can he be as liberal as he wants to be, as he really is? I think he is. He just masks it well through his staff and other means. and takes a hard line on things that maybe he wouldn't have because he's not running again, right? There's no political consequence. So I don't know. Or will he do things to try to set up his successor? Will it be Lieutenant Governor Rodriguez? Will Senator Calderoy's jump in again? David Crowley, Milwaukee County Executive. So there's, could he do things to try to leverage one candidate over the other? So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. But maybe there's a unique opportunity for us that, we could do things like we did under Governor Walker. An executive rarely gives up power unless they know they're leaving, right? So under Governor Walker, knowing he's going to be gone, we try to bring some of those functions and powers back to the legislature where they belong. And an executive that plans to run again will never give that up. And so you have to take advantage of those unique times when someone's not running again. And so maybe this next year and a half could be an opportunity to claw back some influence from the governor's mansion again.
Specifically the veto, line and veto powers that the governor has in Wisconsin. You think that would be
take a constitutional change.
Okay.
So we wouldn't need the governor's permission anyways. We could bypass him, but we need 2 consecutive sessions of the legislature passing the same amendment and all that rigmarole. It takes some time. But that's something I think we do need to address, the line item veto, whether it's going to be Governor Tiffany or former Governor Walker or, Governor Rodriguez going forward. I don't think that people ever envisioned a governor's line item veto that unique and powerful. And I think there needs to be a check on it. It's something the legislature should look at.
So something I wrote down and want to get to later, but I'll just bring it up now because it's what we're kind of talking about. I had seen yesterday, or maybe it was the day before, I can't remember who it was, but someone in the legislature, maybe 2 people in the legislature, are introducing something to repeal Evers's 400-year tax increase. Are you familiar with that, and is this going to have any traction?
I hope so, and that was one of my biggest criticisms too. And when the court validated his veto, remember he did that trickery where he got rid of the hyphen and combined the numbers and made this per pupil increase for schools for the next 400 years. And it's different than a categorical increase. So not to get too far in depth on school funding, but there's categorical per pupil aid that the state funds that gives to schools. It's directly state money, comes out of our coffers, goes into the school. You can spend it how you want it. This was an increase by the revenue limit. So schools are capped what they can spend. It's a combination of property taxes and state aid. And so this was an increase on that front. So that means if the state does not give an amount every year the same, it all falls 100% on property taxes. And so that's something where we've talked about. It's literally a 400-year property tax increase unless the state comes up to hold the taxpayers harmless. And that $325 per pupil per year forever, basically. The country is 200 and what years old, but this is supposed to go on for 400 years. No. It would be $800 million a year, roughly every budget that we'd have to find just to hold down property taxes, and the state can't afford it. And so that's where this is an opportunity to come back and say, like we've always done, every budget, we look at what schools have, what federal monies are coming in. What if there's another pandemic and the feds throw cash everywhere and schools are flush with COVID money, and we're still giving them arbitrary increases every year, the same amount, property tax increase every year, never have to go before the voters for a vote. It circumvents referendums. And so that's a problem. So I'll be supporting the legislation, not because we don't want to support schools or give them increases, but this blanket same amount every year, no matter what you spend, no matter how many kids you have, is just ridiculous. And it's unaffordable.
And doesn't that kind of dissuade the legislature from putting more into education?
100%. Yep. Now we can't be thoughtful, right? We can't be thoughtful and target aid for specific things because there's a lot of legislators that are saying, well, everyone's getting $325 per kid. That's more than enough. They're going to walk away from the conversation.
Sure.
Well, then we don't address things like high cost transportation or certain costs for special ed, which we did this budget anyways, or other items. And so that's the frustrating part. And when people say, why don't you put more money in general aid to lower the property tax bill on this?
Yeah.
But if we put more general aid in, why should we be buying down the property taxes of people in Madison whose school district already spends more than 70% of the schools in our Senate seat. So think about that. So Madison spends between $14,000 and $15,000 per pupil. That's more than 70% of the per pupil amount than the schools in our district. Sorry, more than 70% of the schools in our district. And so when we put general aid in, it goes to buy down those property taxes. Well, I'm not going to buy down the property taxes of people in Madison who've been voting to increase their spending for years and years higher than what our schools spend. So we're just not going to do that. And so that's where you're exactly right. It prevents us from being thoughtful and solving real problems in education funding by doing this blanket forever $325 per kid, no matter what you spend today.
And by the way, good morning, Representative Gabe Magnifici. Again, I'll always call her that. She said, apparently, remain for governor. Good morning, Dirk Miller. Love seeing him on. And Wayne Harper.
Dave.
And my mother, Diane, has a question. Where do you see the public school system in 5 years?
I still don't know why I can't see your comments, Ben.
I don't know. You probably blocked her. She's probably like,
yeah,
she's
Diane's one of my trolls. We had to dial her back a little bit. Good morning, Diane. No, I think.
Where do you see the public school system in 5 years?
Yeah, there's going to be big challenges because we have a demographic challenge, and we've known this is coming for a long time. And schools have been, right-sizing the ship as class sizes shrink. They've been letting staff go, things like that. The only institution that doesn't do this is the UW system, which we've talked about. They're adding staff as they're losing students. The total opposite of what you should be doing. Yeah. So I think we're going to have unique challenges. I look at the Butternut School District, great little school, but they're down to 140, 150 kids, K through 12 in the entire building. And they just failed another referendum. Their demographics aren't growing. They don't have housing projects going on to attract families. And so at what point do you look at that district and say, we can't even offer you the same quality education as a district down the road because of your size? Now, I'm very partial to small schools. I think you can control the culture of a school, the quality of those kids, the other aspects besides just education, just raising a good person when they come out of that district and not having all the problems we see in some of our bigger schools. But at what point, they don't get a chance at an AP class. They don't get a chance at a college credit. They can't play on the football team. There isn't one. They can't, band might be a struggle, so those opportunities don't exist when you get to a certain point. So we're going to have hard conversations, for districts like that are really close to another one, that are very small, and other districts that are small but aren't close to anyone. So how do we fund schools like a Birchwood or a Drummond where there is nowhere else to go, right? If that school closes, now my kid's on a bus for 45 minutes one way, and that's if they're the only kid on the bus. Now you pick all these kids up. Your kid could be on the bus for an hour and a half in the morning and an hour and a half on the way home. And is that acceptable, right? So some of those districts, as they get smaller, still have to stay open because there is nowhere else to go. And so how do we fund them differently? Because per pupil is not going to cut it anymore, right? You've got this building that existed since the 60s, for 800 kids. Now you've got 500 kids, but you're still heating and maintaining the same building, and you're getting money per pupil. So we're going to have some tough conversations. We're going to have to get creative. Our small rural public schools are really the hearts of our communities. And so we'll continue to address those issues as we come along.
Do you think the budget, how much money was given in the budget for schools?
Man, I think total spendable dollars. Now, remember, there's a difference between what the state gave and what we allowed them to tax because of that veto, right? So it's about $1 billion more over the next 2-year period for public education. $500 million of that just being in special education, raising that reimbursement rate.
Is this going to help math and reading scores? Is that going to impact that? I mean, what is that money used for?
So it just depends. A lot of it's general operations. A lot of it's going towards healthcare costs. And that's something that we have to address too. We're hearing from school districts that are getting double-digit premium increases every year. So they might get $325 per pupil, and it goes right out the door in insurance costs for staff. It doesn't buy another book. It doesn't add a teacher's aide to the classroom to reduce student teacher ratios. It doesn't do anything really to improve the education of a child. It's just going towards fixed costs. And so there's a lot of cost issues I think we have to address at the same time, because money is not always the answer.
Do you think that schools, and even if you do think this, you may not want to say it, so I'll say I think so, that maybe some schools also need to kind of take a hard look at some of what they're doing. By that I mean, I've heard that there are some schools in our area in rural northwest Wisconsin that there's like this race for putting an AstroTurf in for for their football not stadium, but their football field. Because, well, they have an AstroTurf. Well, we need AstroTurf. We need more money for AstroTurf. It's what? Like in Shell Lake, we used to play, if anybody remembers this, Shell Lake, oh my goodness, back in the pit or the swamp. It was just terrible. I remember talking to Adam Jarko, and he goes, my last game was down there. He goes, it was just terrible. But we didn't care. Like, everyone still went, right? It was football. And it's, do you want to put money into that? Really? AstroTurf? Really?
Yeah.
What's wrong with what we have now? How about we have the best teachers in the area? How about we try to poach the best teachers from other areas to come here, pay them more? Look, I'm not saying we necessarily should do that too, but I'm way more for that than AstroTurf in a football field. What? Do you think that schools are taking this opportunity to, where can we get better? Almost like the Doge approach?
So it's a mixed bag, and I will say I also played on that old Shell Lake field. When I was at St. Joe's, we had to have a 5th through 8th grade team, and I got laid out by an 8th grader in Shell Lake as a 5th grader, and I said, you know what? This is really not that fun. I don't know what I'm doing out here. So I've seen that pit of a field. Yeah. But I would say two things. You can't just blame the schools, because a lot of it is parents and expectations, right? I want my child to be the best baseball player. I want my child to be the best basketball player. And the public is more likely to support referendums that build athletic facilities than adding a science classroom, right? It just is what
bizarre?
It is.
That's I guess what I was getting to, is that I think we just need to look at it differently. Not saying that those things are important in sports, and every study shows the kids that are in sports do better in school. And I mean, there's so many benefits of this. I'm not saying get rid of it.
Right.
But, we're putting a lot of money into these things, when I kind of feel like maybe we should be looking at, our teachers and our classes first. That's all I'm saying.
And some of that infrastructure is, could be one time, right? Versus, staff costs are ongoing perpetually. But you're right. And that's where I think, between Act 10 and kind of taking some authority back from the unions, was trying to incentivize schools to really go after and a market-based approach to attract those teachers that are the most qualified that they need. And I think a lot have done that. And they've had to do that because of just the workforce, right? Like a tech teacher right now can basically name their salary and go where they want, because there aren't enough of them, right? It's truly a market-based economy for some of those teaching degrees, because everyone wants them, everyone needs them, and they have to pay them more. And so, but again, you got to have the money to pay them too. And when schools aren't immune from inflation. You've seen it in your business. I've seen it, in our family. Well, schools do too. Utilities, costs, paying staff more. The bus drivers don't drive for $12 an hour anymore. You got to pay them $20 to get someone in the door. I mean, they're under the same pressure as everybody else. But there's always ways to do things more efficient. There's always ways to improve. And those are the issues we need to keep focusing on.
Are you happy with specifically the education part, the funding for education? Were you happy with that? Were you satisfied with that number? Did you want more, or would you have preferred less, or maybe just put in a different area?
I would have done things a little different. I would have raised the low revenue ceiling, and maybe we could have invested some general dollars to buy down that increase. So remember, we have districts that spend $11,000 per kid, or $11,325 now.
Yep.
And there's districts like Madison that spend almost $15,000 a kid. So why are we giving them all the same amount of money? And we expect them to compete the same, on the same report card, the same outcomes. But we have districts like Shell Lake, who I think is at low 11s, 11,325 kids, $25 a kid. And you're supposed to compete and perform on the same report card against Madison, who spends another $4,000 a kid. Well, think of what you could do in Shell Lake if you had another $4,000 per kid. Class size reductions, extracurricular activities, all sorts of stuff, right? But now, because of the veto, Shell Lake is going to get the same exact amount of money as Madison. And so what I would have done is raise the low revenue ceiling and then use state dollars to buy down that portion of the property tax increase. So again, we're getting in the weeds a little bit, but we should be funding solutions. Whenever we spend money, we should be fixing a problem. And so raising our lowest spending districts up, not following that all on local property taxpayers, should have been the focus. And unfortunately, a little bit on the legislature and then partially because of the governor, we just couldn't do that this budget.
Okay, I was just going to ask then why didn't that get done?
Because everyone was already getting the same amount, and then property taxes are already going up, and so raising the low revenue again would have raised taxes even more unless we backfilled it. But we couldn't afford to backfill it because we put so much money in special education, which we had to, or the governor wasn't going to sign the budget. And so there's a lot of different moving parts.
I see.
With that, and we haven't even gotten into the other parts of the budget, right? We're talking about $1 billion in school spending. Well, Cripes, our cost to continue just for medical assistance, MA was $1.4 billion.
Yeah, and there's actually, I'm glad you brought that up. We have a question here from Brian in Shasta. It said, there was a child care increase as well. I want to get to those questions. We'll do that in 15 seconds after a word from Spooner Health.
Compassion is at the center of everything we do. It's rooted in who we are and why we're here. It unites us as providers, neighbors, and as a community. Learn more at spoonerhealth.com.
All right, so here's one from Brian. I just lost my wonderful doctor who cited upcoming massive cuts in Medicaid and Medicare funding and consequent closure of rural clinics/hospitals and jobs, short of massive local tax cuts. What are your thoughts on addressing the situation?
Well, it hasn't happened yet. I would love to see the fallout of this, to see what it's going to be. Again, a lot of this is hyperbole. The feds did leave $50 billion aside specifically for just rural and critical access hospitals. I think I read somewhere every state's guaranteed a minimum of $100 million, again, targeting those rural clinics. And so we're not reducing reimbursement rates. So I don't even know what Brian's talking about or what that doctor's talking about. When he sees a patient on Medicaid, he's actually going to get more money based on the budget we just did. He's going to get more money depending on the service he provides for that Medicaid patient. So honestly, I don't know the answer to that question because I don't think some of it's rooted in reality. But we'll see. Are there consequences? Could some people lose Medicaid, their coverage? Sure. Are there single adults, single childless adults that should be looking for work or at least volunteering to maintain Medicaid?
Or going to school? Yeah. Wasn't it the third one? Like just be in school, volunteer, yep. Or a job? Like right. What was it? Like I can't remember what it was. 20 hours a month or...
Like something. I think it's 80 hours a month. Maybe
80
hours. To volunteer.
Maybe that's it was 20. It came down to around 20 hours a week. I mean,
right.
Just saying, there's something there.
Yeah. So if you're not physically handicapped, if you're not mentally handicapped, and you're able to work, and you're not right now, you should have to maintain employment or look for employment to maintain your Medicaid benefits. It's that simple.
Shasta said the same pressures exist in child care, and saying charge parents more is not acceptable. That was from a previous, from earlier, but there was also child care. Money put into that from the budget as well. Were you happy with the amount? Again, too much, not enough, or should have been refocused? What were your thoughts on that?
So I think it was a great budget for childcare. Some people don't think it's enough, and some people think it was way too much. But I would think the unique thing we did was this. So we know a lot of providers were really starting to lose money more when they were losing their 4-year-old kids. And so I'm under the same situation right now. Little Romaine is 4. We could keep him in his provider right now. If I was in a licensed facility in town, not the school, it makes no sense for me to continue paying for childcare when I can send him to the public school for free because the school gets the money, but my childcare provider doesn't. And if they offer the same programming, it's certified, it's quality programming, it's 4K child readiness, why should they not get that money? So we're forcing kids into public schools earlier and earlier. And when you take all the 4-year-olds out of these centers, the ratios for student to staff are different. Those are the ones that help pay for the babies that providers lose money on. So you can only have 1 staff per 4 infants. On 4-year-olds, I think you can have up to maybe 12, depending on your license and what type of center you are, kids per staff. So your cost of caring for those kids is wildly different. And so what we want to do is say, hey, if you're a parent and you love your child care provider, whether it's Bradway Center in Rice Lake, there's a center in Chautauqua as well, and they offer 4K. You should be able to keep your kid there. You shouldn't feel like you have to send them to the public school already. And the money that we were going to spend on the public school, why can't it flow back to the daycare provider? So this is the first time we've ever addressed this. It's really a fundamental change, and it's going to be huge for parents and providers as they keep more 4K kiddos in their doors to help with the cost of doing business. And I would say on the flip side of that, we also invested more in our shares program. So the shares program is a subsidized program for working parents to help them with the cost of childcare. And this is like the only government program that works the way a government program should, because it requires work and it requires skin in the game. And this is very rare for government to do this, right? And as you make more money, you get less of a subsidy. And so you don't have this fiscal cliff where if you make too much, you lose it or you don't qualify. So we try to expand access again, qualify more working class families in it. And then as they grow in income over time, we'll slowly back your subsidy out as you make more money, but still allow you that benefit. And so what we did that. And on top of it, we invested in what I like to call a baby bump. So there was an idea that we were working on because we know the cost of infants is so much more because of the ratios, staff to kiddos, than other kids. So we wanted to give more money and bump in that program for babies. And so we're doing that. I think it's another $150 a month, or maybe $200 a month from 0 to 18 months, and then 18 months to 30 months is another $100 a month. So trying to inject $400 or $600 more every month into that one classroom to help lift wages for that staff or those expenses. So again, it's a different way to approach it. Shasta and others want a direct payment from the state. They want a direct payment, a check from the state, just because they exist in that field of business. And a lot of people are not comfortable with that. They'd rather figure out a way to put the money in the parents' hands. We did that last budget. We passed my child care tax deduction increase, $70 million more into parents' pockets. So again, it's just a different way of trying to fund childcare, just a fundamental difference. And we've got people that are saying, hey, we made sacrifices and my wife stayed home. And we went with a lot of things. We didn't have the nice car. We didn't go on vacation. We didn't do whatever, but we made that conscientious effort. And why am I paying more for someone to go to work and have the luxuries because they're allowed to work? Why am I subsidizing their childcare? So there's a lot of different thoughts and ideas and conversations on what should childcare look like. But I think this budget really struck that middle. It solved a problem. It invested more. And I think it was a win for childcare, which is why the governor signed it.
Well, speaking of why he signed it, what did you hear back from your constituents, from your colleagues, your peers? There's some people say that Evers didn't do, like Democrats will say that it wasn't enough. He conceded too much. Others say that Republicans conceded too much. And there are a few people that say this is how it works, right? There was a compromise. How did you view it?
Oh, it definitely spent too much money, for sure. But that's what I tell people. I said, give me a new governor, and the tax cuts would have been bigger. The spending would have been less. We would have maybe been more thoughtful on education, not this blanket amount of money like we talked about a little earlier. But there could be things, too, that wouldn't have gotten done if there was a different governor, too. But that's what I would tell my conservative friends is, we could have held the budget up. So play this out. Let's say we didn't do a lot of these increases, right? We're sitting on $4 billion in a surplus. Now, granted, that's one-time money, not ongoing. Big difference. You don't take one-time money and pay for payroll, right? That's ongoing.
Right. Yep.
And we do a budget that was more realistic, which I would have liked. And let's say the governor doesn't sign it. He vetoes the whole thing. So now we head into fall. The state's sitting on $4.5 billion in the surplus, and there's no budget, which is partially fine because the state continues on as they did the last year. But now the governor runs around the state and says, hey, I would have helped you with childcare, but the Republicans didn't. I would have fixed your pothole, but Republicans won't pass a budget.
Politics 101. Got it.
Exactly, right? And who has the bully pulpit? So we could have done that. I would have liked to have thrown him a more conservative budget, and maybe I still think he would have signed it. I don't think his threats were as real as we thought they were on some of this stuff. But on the flip side, for my conservative colleagues who voted no, you actually cost us money because we had to go out and get Democrat votes. And every time we have to go get a Democrat vote, it costed money.
And by money, explain that for people. So there were some, how many voted against it? How many Republicans?
I think about 5.
Yeah, so that means in order to get this passed and looking at how many Republicans versus Democrats are on there, that means you had to go to across the aisle, right, to the Democrats and say, we need your help on this. But they're going to say, what's in it for me?
Totally. Yep. And that's what happened. So, and some of it wasn't that bad. Fortunately, they are not great negotiators, frankly, because I think partly because they haven't been in power for so long, they don't know what they're doing. Which is nice. So we mitigated it as much as we could, to get certain members. There was UW buildings on their campuses they wanted, right? That would have gotten them more likely to vote for a budget. So at the end of the day, is it a building we would have built at some point? Sure. Did it need to be done? Sure. Does it tear down an old building and it's not more square footage? Like, that doesn't compromise my principles, right? Certain buildings we would have built now or 5 years from now. And so if that's what it took to get it done, fine. But I would say, like, again, for those voted no, we had to spend more money than we would have to go get those votes. And so it's a double-edged sword.
There are a lot of people saying that good job, Governor Evers. This is why we like you so much, because you were able to find this compromise, and that's why we liked you. And then I was talking to somebody about that recently, and they said, actually, slow down. Like, don't give them necessarily too much. And this is this is just a political person who has no alliances to anyone, and said, well, careful before you give Evers too much credit, because the Republican controls the legislature, and that kind of prevented him from doing what he wanted. Like, you actually have to sit and look at that and go, if he actually got what he wanted, where would our state be right now? Now, I don't know if that's true or not. What are your thoughts?
Well, and that's what I was going to bring up your last question. So when you mentioned who voted no, and Evers getting crap from his own side for not doing enough, that's what scares the daylights out of me, is that we've got colleagues on the left that think this budget didn't go nearly far enough.
Yep.
Didn't spend nearly far enough. Didn't tax nearly far enough. And God forbid, if they ever got control, what would that look like? And that scares the daylights out of me, because if this budget wasn't enough, what is? Like, where does it end? And these people they don't care if it balances. They don't care where it comes from. They don't care where it is 2 years from now, and can we sustain it? I mean, look at Minnesota. They did the same thing. They had a $17 billion surplus. They promised the world, and they're cutting $6 billion right now out of their budget. Like, there's nothing more irresponsible.
Didn't really work out very well.
Yeah, there's nothing more
honestly, and that's a weird thing. Like, you don't have to have a PhD in economics to just play this forward and go, well, hold on. So, we're actually going to be screwed if we do that. It's not that tough sometimes.
And that's where, we did this with Evers' budget. He would have left us with like a $4.5 billion budget deficit heading into the next biennium. So think of this for a second. When Governor Walker came in, he was elected in the Republicans with a mandate back in 2010, the state coming out of the recession, fiscal mess. We had about a $3 billion deficit that triggered Act 10, a budget repair bill, cutting benefits, furloughing state employees. All of that happened because of a $3 billion deficit. Governor Evers would have left us a $4.5 billion deficit. Like, these are huge numbers. These are Governor Walker Act 10 reform kind of numbers. And they were okay with that. We should have passed it as is. Every amendment the Democrats offered on the floor just mirrored what the governor wanted, right? And so they didn't have any new ideas. They just wanted to bring back the governor's old budget. So 20% increase in spending, $4 billion deficit, adding over 1,000 state employees. And what did we do? We cut his budget by $9 billion. Instead of adding 1,000 employees, we cut 300 employees. Instead of spending 20%, we cut that almost in half. So there's pros and cons to it, and there's give and takes. And I'm looking forward to a new governor in the mansion next cycle who we can get some more stuff done, like real reforms.
Nice. Speaking of that, after Evers announced that he wasn't running, Congressman Tiffany put out a statement and he said, I thank Governor Evers for his years of service and wish him well as he announces his retirement. However, he leaves behind a legacy of decline. Under the education governor, student achievement has fallen behind Mississippi, which I don't know why we're just throwing them under the bus all of a sudden. Wisconsin faces a structural deficit, and energy costs now rank second highest in the Midwest. Wisconsinites deserve better. It's time we change course before we end up like Minnesota and Illinois. What are your thoughts about that? Do you echo that?
Yeah, there is always room for improvement. And I don't think there was anything crazy exciting on whether it's the education front. I mean, if you look, so we tried to improve literacy in this state. We know we're falling behind, not because we talked on the show, not because we're necessarily doing a lot worse, but other states are doing a lot better. And so our ranking's falling. You know, our literacy package came from our Republican leaders, came from Senator Jagler, came from Education Chair Joel Kitchens. And then they negotiated a package with DPI, with the governor. And then after that agreement, he still lied and vetoed it, held the money up, set us back a whole year, right? So, I mean, so I absolutely agree with Congressman Tiffany's post. We have to do better. We have to do better for our kids, for our taxpayers, and just putting us on a better trajectory long term. You know, setting this budget aside, you know, I under a new governor, we got to get creative. I think we look at either statutory or constitutional caps on spending in the future, like per capita. You know, you can't spend more than this much money per citizen of Wisconsin, or you can't have more than this much debt per citizen of Wisconsin, capping those future legislatures. So, because going back to our budget conversations, the only thing that kept our spending in check was that we still have people in control in the Senate and the Assembly that said, here are the parameters. We're not raising taxes. Here's how much money we have. And we're not raising the structural deficit higher than this. And so here's our pot. We don't want to spend all of it, but now we have to because we have Governor Evers. But we're never going beyond this, right? So there's these parameters. The other side does not have these. It doesn't matter if the pot's only this big. They'll figure out how to expand it. They'll either borrow it or they'll tax it, right? There's no parameters. And so the only way, if God forbid the adults in the room lose control, is to have arbitrary caps. Either a constitutional cap, like I said, on spending per capita.
I see.
Wisconsin's got 5.5 million people. You can't spend more than, $110 billion, whatever that number is, right? Because my fear is whether it was my time as mayor at Rice Lake or even the legislature, there's always a wall we're up against, right? Like the money's not infinite. We're not the federal government. We can't print it. So there's always this wall that keeps us in check naturally. But there are colleagues in Madison that don't think there's a natural check on government spending. And so we have to implement some of those. So I think we can do that under a new administration. I think we can get creative and really set the state on a positive track going forward.
Sarah Rodriguez, the lieutenant governor, she announced that she was going to be running for governor. But Governor Evers said that he wasn't going to endorse anyone at this time, may change his mind at a later date. You had mentioned earlier there's some other people that are interested or potentially interested in running. What kind of a Democrat do you think we're going to see, or what type of Democrats we're going to see? Are we going to see far left? Are we going to, in order to win, do you think it's going to have to be more of the moderate Democrats because it is a purple state?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think primaries in general tend to elect the most conservative or liberal from each party, right? In general, they tend to do that because the electorate's different. Only 10% of the party usually turns out in August. So in that 10% of Democrats, they're super engaged. They're probably super liberal on some issues. And they're going to show up for someone that most reflects that. And so the Democratic Party might get stuck with a candidate that could be more liberal than even some moderate Democrats would like. Same thing could play out on the Republican side as well. But I don't think so far out of the three, I don't think there's anyone that's radical that the general population in Wisconsin wouldn't stomach. And so I think it'll be fine. But, nationally, and if you look at, I think on the other side, it's going to be interesting. David Crowley, I think he's kind of pragmatic, nice enough guy. He was in the legislature. A lot of us know him, Milwaukee County executive. I don't know what kind of candidate Sarah Rodriguez thinks she's going to be, if she's going to be like the follow-up of Evers, but a woman version. Sure. Attorney General Josh Call might jump in, and I would say, he has been so partisan with his office. I think his goal is just to sue the Trump administration because he sneezed wrong. So I don't know how that plays out. So yeah, it's going to be a wild year. It's anyone's game right now.
Yeah, and on the Republican side, Josh Schoeman, he had announced that was back in May. And so I've gotten to know him. He's been on our show. Really nice guy. I like him a lot. Again, when I look at people, it's not about their issues or their policies. It's just about, just getting to know them as a person. I just happen to know him. He seems really nice. Bill Berrien. I don't know much about him. And honestly, what I thought I knew about him was that he wasn't even a Republican. But apparently he's a Republican. I don't really know that much about him. What do you know about Bill Berrien and Josh Schoeman?
So I would say, and very little of both, right? Just besides their campaigns and the videos they put out. And Josh reminds me a lot of Governor Walker. Came from a family with, dad was a preacher, I think. Now he's a county exec. Very, very similar, I feel like, in that vein of Governor Walker. And I think he is an up-and-comer. Whether it's this time's his or not will remain to be seen. But, I hope he stays in the game. And we need young, dynamic people to continue to build the bench and be a conservative voice across the state. Bill, man, just the videos I've seen on Facebook of his own interviews on Fox, saying that, well, I'm not really sure I could vote for Trump right now. I'll have to see what the Biden-Harris ticket can offer. And I'm like, on what planet, even when you disagree with Trump as a Republican, would you ever consider flipping the other side in 2020? And so just the things I've been seeing is I think he's going to really struggle in the Republican primary. Yeah. The party is different than it was 10 years ago. It's been fun to watch. So when I first got elected, really the power base of the Republican Party has always been the Southeast, the WOW counties, the Waukesha, Ozaukee, Washington area. And it still is. There's a huge chunk of the Republican Party is down there. But it's shifting. The power base is shifting. It's shifting to the north. It's shifting to rural areas. Some of those areas are, they're not performing like they used to for the party. And so there's been more emphasis. The rural country Republicans are a lot more prominent in the Republican Party, even in the legislative makeup, than the more, I would say, old-fashioned country club type Republicans in the Southeast, right? So the party's changing. It's different, and I think Trump drove a lot of that. We have a lot of union Democrats that are Republicans now. They're Trump Republicans. They're rural Republican voters now. And so the Republican Party that used to be super anti-union, I don't think is as anti-union anymore because we have a lot of union members that are Republicans that just feel disaffected. So it's not unique to Wisconsin. So it's just been fun to watch because you look at even Joint Finance, Senator Staffschul, just to our west, Northwest Wisconsin, rural Republican, Senator Felskowski, our Senate president, Northeast, rural Republican woman, myself, I'm on the Joint Finance Committee. Like we have great representation and there's real things coming from it. $150 million for our agricultural road improvement program. That never would have happened 10 years ago. Speaker Voss, personal friend of mine, hates spending money on non-state roads. He doesn't think it's the state's responsibility. There's no way 10 years ago we would have got him to agree to $150 million for rural roads. Just never would have happened. But the legislative makeup has changed. A lot of our members are very rural, and it's a priority now. So it's been fun to see. Oh, that was a fly.
Oh, that freaked me out.
So it's been changing, and it's been a good change. It's been good for the state, good for rural areas overall.
Well, and rural and also northern. Like I kind of feel like, well, you're down there a lot. You live in northern Wisconsin, but you're down in Madison a lot. Are you seeing that change? Are you seeing people down in Madison finally starting to pay attention more to northern Wisconsin, to the Northwoods? Because we're starting to show up. Republican or Democrat, doesn't matter. We're starting to show up. We're starting to pay more attention, and you need to start paying attention to us. Have you noticed that in Madison?
100%. Yep. Similar to my comments earlier. It's shifting the makeup of the bodies, and yep, it's changing.
Lastly here, we're up against our time. Tom Tiffany, a lot of people are thinking that he may run or not. That will probably be announced, I'm assuming. Like most people are going to start announcing in August, September. This is when it all happens. If he announces that he is running, are you Team Tiffany? Are you 100% all on him? Or is it nope, I have to be, I'm staying out of this, and I'll wait till the primary's finished, and then that'll be my guy or girl, whatever.
Yep. No, I would be 100% behind Tom. So I think Tom is uniquely set up. He's gone through the state process, right? Ran for the assembly, was in the Senate, on the Joint Finance Committee for at least 2 budgets, if not 3 budgets. So he knows all the departments inside and out, because I know what I learned from one time on Joint Finance. He knows it inside and out. He knows where the skeletons are buried in the state. And then he went to the feds, and he got a taste of that, and he's still in that, right? And working under a Democrat president, now working under President Trump. So having that experience on both sides, and then truly being a citizen legislator. Tom is a guy that he has never changed. He is still from the Northwoods, roots here. And the part I like about Tom is that he has always been committed to state politics, even out in D.C. He's always calling, how are your races going for the state legislature? He doesn't have to care. He's a congressman, right? He's got bigger fish to fry, but he's always, how's this race going? How's this assembly seat looking? He's always had his tentacles on the ground, making sure everything's going well for the state. And so he's really never left state politics. And so I'm excited to have a governor that comes from the legislature that truly appreciates our role and will work with us long term to really be effective. So I am 100% if he jumps, and I hope he makes the jump.
That would be the first time. I saw Paul Schekelman had commented earlier in the show. He was the one who informed me last week. He said this would be if Tom Tiffany announced, and if he ran, and if he won, he would be the first northern Wisconsin, basically like north of Wausau, governor in Wisconsin since like 1959. It was like Gaylord Nelson or something from 59 to 63. The first one. So with knowing that information, that it's been 60 years, over 60 years, is someone from the Northwoods able to win this?
Well, hell, I would say it's our turn, right? We've waited long enough, right? So I think it's going to be statewide. The state is very split. It's going to be a challenge no matter what. And frankly, the candidates we've been running have not been winning. So
well,
I would say
that.
Try a different playbook, right? Stop running the same play and hoping for a different result. It's not working. So I think people, Trump just won the state, like him or hate him. I think people want someone that says it like it is, that's authentically Wisconsin. There's no questions about their residency. Born and raised here. They didn't start here, move away, and come back from a different state. No one likes a carpetbagger. And so I think he has a lot of unique ability to appeal that other candidates might not. Yeah. And so I'd support him if he jumps in.
All right. Well, anything else you want to make sure we talked about that we didn't get a chance to talk about?
Man, we could have went in depth, more on some of the other budget stuff, but we just don't have the time. I would say a couple big things that, I've heard for years we haven't done a whole lot, increased our county routine maintenance agreements. Our counties maintain all state highways. The state doesn't do that. We require counties to do it and pay them. We haven't increased their rates for years, probably over a decade, $30 million more for that. I've heard that from our highway commissioners for a long time. And then an important one that I supported as well would be an increase in the reimbursement rates for obstetric services in Medicaid. Almost 1 in every 3 babies now are born on the Medicaid program. It costs money. OB services are actually a loss leader for a lot of times for medical institutions. And so as we see a decline in the ability to have children in rural areas, if hospitals and systems weren't losing so much money on the service, would they be less likely to close down their OB departments? Sure. And so investing more through Medicaid to raise those rates was important in this budget as well for rural Wisconsin. So a lot of good things. Happy to talk more about it later, but we're out of time.
All right. What do you have coming up this week?
Man, I've got some more meetings today. Next weekend's Hog and Fun Days. So we're just trying to bounce around different communities. They all have different functions going on, and there's always a lot to do. So if you're bored in northern Wisconsin, it's your own fault. I always say that.
It's your own fault. Real quick, when are you going back into session? Are you still going back this year?
We're gonna have a regular fall session. Yep, absolutely.
When does that start?
I don't know if there's really a hard stop or a start date. Okay. Some members I think have been back down already, and with baby number 3 due anytime. My plan was to catch up on stuff here. Because when I'm not in Madison, I get to finally go to the meetings here I'm supposed to go to, right? I miss the Towns Association meetings. I miss county board meetings. I miss these other things I can't get to when you're in the finance committee 300 miles away. So finally get to do those things. So my plan would be to go back down probably sometime in September as committees start gearing up and we're pushing our own bills, which I have a number of that we're trying to get done this fall yet.
Awesome. All right, man. We'll see you next month, huh?
Yes.
Thank you. Special thank you to Wisconsin's 25th District Senator Romaine Quinn for taking the time to come on for a chat with us. And, of course, thank all of you for your questions and your comments. I'll see you right back here next Thursday, August. I don't know what day. It's a week from today when I'll be chatting once again with our good friend North of Ayton Design and Marketing founder Emily Gall. So until then, for DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden saying thank you for watching and have a blessed day.